University, Kano, and a BA in Islamic Studies from the University of Jos, Nigeria. Over the last 3 decades, Professor Umar has done so much work on the interdisciplinary relationship between the history of Islamic movements, Islam, and colonialism in West Africa, religion and violence and peace building. He has an impressive history of teaching, research, consultancy, and administrative experience in different countries, including appointments at Arizona University and Northwestern University, Illinois, where he directed the Institute for the Study of Islamic Thought in Africa. He is the author of several impactful publications, including his widely acclaimed book, Islam and Colonialism, Intellectual Responses of Muslims of Northern Nigeria to British Colonial Rule, published by Brill. This work is a seminal contribution to the historiography of Islam in Northern Nigeria and has been widely cited within the historiography of Muslim West Africa. He has published many articles in peer-reviewed journals and book chapters, which are too numerous to mention here, but I will quickly cite the ones that are immediately relevant to the subject of this conference today. 1, the politics of ethno-religious balancing and the struggle for power in Nigeria, which appeared in the edited volume titled Religious Authority and the State in Africa. Number 2, Salafi violence and Sufi tolerance, rethinking conventional wisdom, published in Perspectives on Terrorism. Number 3, the roles of the Ulama in radicalization and counter-radicalization, published in Overcoming Boko Haram, Faith, Society, and Islamic Radicalization in Northern Nigeria. 4, expanding the vocabulary of Islamic liberalism, Izala effect, the unintended consequences of Salafi radicalism in Nigeria and Indonesia, published in the Journal of Contemporary Islam. Number 5, singing the glory of Inyas, the joyful music to mock Salafis in Nigeria, published in the Journal for Islamic Studies. The scholarship of Professor Umar is widely recognized and referenced across various disciplines, and this is evident in the number of scholarly citations to his writings. His works have been cited over 20,000 times on Google Scholar, along with an H index of 75 and an I-10 index of 407. He has administrative and leadership experience spanning decades. He was head of Department of History and Diplomatic Studies, University of Abuja, Nigeria, head of Department of History, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, director, Institute for the Study of Islamic Thought in Africa, Northwestern University, Evanston in Illinois, the United States, member of the Executive Management Committee of Program of African Studies in Illinois, and member of Islamic Studies Search Committee, Department of Religious Studies, Northwestern University, Illinois, chair of Islamic Studies Search Committee, Department of Religious Studies, Arizona University. He was a fellow of the prestigious, well, forgive my pronunciation, this is a very difficult German word, Wenzelshep Kolleg, Berlin Fellowship. It was a very prestigious fellowship in Berlin for the year 2006 and 2007. Beyond the academia, Professor Umar has served as consultant for organizations like the United States Development Program, the World Bank, and the British Council, focusing on de-radicalization, transitional justice, and peace-building initiatives across conflict-affected regions in Nigeria and the Lake Chad Basin. He has authored several policy briefs. With this very quick citation, I would like you to join me in inviting Professor Umar to the table to give us the keynote lecture for this conference titled Critical Reflections on the Ulama and Politics in Nigeria. You are welcome, Prof.
Okay. Yes. And then I just press.
Yeah.
You can use. Okay. You're pointing that way. Is this working? Is this working? So this is the one working. I can do it from here now, isn't it?
Yes.
Aha. I can do it from here. Okay, so Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. As the saying goes, allow me to stand on the existing protocol, and thank you for that generous citation. Only that I do not recognize myself in it. Tell the person when I grow up, I would like to be like him. But yes, it is a great honor, very, very great honor for me to stand before this distinguished audience in this great citadel of learning with which I am proudly associated as a former graduate student. I look forward to coming back to Bayero to meet my teachers. Many of them have passed on, some are still alive, and colleagues and former students who are now lecturing in the Department of History and other branches of the university. It was a great joy. I had fun memory. One time I came at the door outside the major street to the Borzo. I saw a plaque, welcome to Sandazwa Bayero University, Jami'ar Hausa, the Hausawa. And I thought that was interesting, but it doesn't do justice to the global fame of this great university to restrict it to just Hausa and Hausawa. It isn't fair. Okay, thank you very much. But beside these preliminary comments, let me get to the business of the day. As you can see from the title, critical reflections means I didn't do original research for the paper. I look back at some of the things that I have done before to then comment on this very, very important conference. As the point has been made, it is timely, supremely important, and deserves a wider audience. For this reason, section 1 of my paper is to congratulate the organizers of this conference, and I have a few suggestions that I would like to offer to them, but I will explain in section 1 why I think the organizers of this important symposium deserve to be congratulated. We all know the Ulama, right? I mean, they lead us in prayer and they solemnize our weddings and help us say goodbye to our departed colleagues. Okay, we know that. We know them, right? Or do we? I think we may not know them sufficiently as they really have been. I would like to explore that. Who are the ulama? And how do you become a member of the ulama? That is topic 3, traditions of Islamic learning in Nigeria. They used to be like 3, now they are about 10. Historical evolution of the roles of ulama in politics. There is a debate about whether ulama should participate in politics. That is a poor understanding of what is politics and a poor understanding of who are the ulama. The question does not arise. The ulama are in politics and they cannot escape being in politics. I put the theoretical exposition for this position by looking at what is politics. We have several meanings of politics. The one that we don't want ulama to be associated with is that kind of conniving, dubious, reckless pursuit for power and no more, which is the characteristic of most of our politicians, with due respect to those who are not covered by that. If that is your understanding of politics, yeah, the ulama should not be in that kind of politics. Deceit, lies, embezzlement, ruthless pursuit of power. If that is politics, if that's your understanding of politics, yes, ulama are above that kind of politics. But politics is bigger than that, and politics is much bigger than that. The conception of politics I'm working with is the one centered around power, pursuit, acquisition, and exercise of power. That are the constituent units of what is politics. And no one understands power more than the ulama, because they understand not only the political power here on earth, but the ultimate source of power itself. All the derivative powers that politicians are angling around are derivative powers. From where? From the ultimate power, from the ultimate being, who gives, actually rent them and can take it away anytime. He gives and he takes away power to whoever he wants. So if politics is centrally about power, no one knows power like the ulama. And no one then can manage power properly like the ulama. So for me, that discussion is like no starter, whether ulama should or should not be in politics. It represents poor understanding of politics as well as a poor understanding of ulama. So I pursued this argument at great length in section 4, and then section 5, I come home to Nigeria. How do we discuss contemporary participation of ulama in politics? We can go as far back as Medunama, the Belemi, or we can start from the colonial era, or we can start from the last election. And then I have a few comments on very interesting topics that are happening in contemporary times. When I glance through the abstracts of the papers, the conference is rich in the lineup of topics and presenters. I must state my impression, my happy observation that there are a whole number of papers that will be presented by our sisters who are in the academy. And one of the points I want to talk about is the role of women ulama. And then the conclusion will come at the end. So, congratulations to the organizers. Why am I congratulating them? Because the historical discourse on history, the historical discourse on ulama and politics has been raging on for at least 800 years or even more. When Arab historians in the Middle East and North Africa begin to record the presence of Islam in the politics of West African countries, you find this early historical reference to ulama and politics in the collection of Arabic documents extracted from the classical Islamic historians and translated into English in a volume called Corpus of Early Arabic Sources for West African History. Originally translated and annotated by one British and one Israeli historian, published in 1981. It was republished in 2000, and it runs into nearly 500 pages. That is as far as you can go. You can approach ulama participation in politics historically from the external sources, or from the famous internal sources, like the accounts of the wars of some of the rulers of Borno, which are in English translation. In Kano, I was once reminded that the visit of Al-Magili and the book he wrote for guiding the rulers of Kano is the first Islamic constitution of the ancient city of Kano. Sultan Muhammad Bello has written on many aspects of history and ulama and their participation in politics. The historical literature is rich and is a living tradition. One of the most recent and seminal work on ulama and politics is by Sheikh Sharif Ibrahim Saleh, Al-Istizkar, Limali Ulama Kanim Nominal Akhbar wal Asar. It's a compendium of ulama and their participation in politics. Our fellow Nigerians and fellow Muslims across the river Niger have been very active, and I'm a bit disappointed I did not see as many of them in the lineup. Maybe they didn't get the announcement. I'm sure Bayero would have welcomed them if they submitted proposal. So, and the discourse of ulama and politics historically is not just ancient. Prominent scholars in the 20th century, like Dr. Ali Abubakar at the Thaqaf al-Arabiya in Nigeria, and one of my teachers when I was a graduate student, Professor S.A.S. Galadanchi, Harakatulubal Arabia in Nigeria, all provide ample documentation. This you know, most of you who are historians know. So the discourse of ulama and politics is history, properly speaking, because political science is a baby of history. Yet, much of the prominent work does not include historians. The classic works on ulama and politics in Nigeria is John Peden, Ibrahim Tahir, Mabin Hisket, and historians are missing in action. If you look at the vast corpus of writing on politics, ulama in Nigeria, historians are missing. Why is that the case? I'm not sure, but I think I'm hopeful that this conference will change the narrative. From now on, going forward, nobody can credibly talk about history, can talk about ulama and politics in Nigeria without referencing the distinguished body of knowledge produced by able historians, long gone and still living and writing. That's why I congratulate the organizers of this conference. And I would like to pray that may God give you the energy and the resources to make this event an ongoing conversation, not a one-time conference, a volume comes out, promotions are earned, and we'll move on. I would like for this topic is so sensitive enough, it's so vital to our well-being and to our culture and safety than to be left just like that. The discussion should go on. I will plead for the organizers. So clap for them, the organizers of this conference. So, who are the ulama? We know them, right? We know them. They lead the family prayers, they teach Islamic learning, and conduct wedding fatihas, and they also perform other functions in society. They resolve conflict, they teach they advise rulers, and so on and so forth. Yes, we know all of this. Yes, the ulama lead the observance of Islamic religious performances. But is that all they do? That may be one of the most important things the ulama do, but it is not the only one. And historically, how have the ulama emerged? That's how we will change the narrative, because history offers that depth of understanding that no contemporary social science is capable of offering. So that is why I'm arguing that history from now on, the discourse should be informed by historical approach. So who are the ulama? This definition of the ulama, I have walked around it for nearly 2 decades now. It was by an American historian, Humphreys, Islamic History, a concept, a framework of inquiry. The text is so dense, I don't know if you could see it, but let me read it for you. Who are the ulama? He said, they appear in our text sometimes as semi-illiterate village imams, and they appear also as erudite qadis, judges, as rebel-rousers, and as advisors to rulers. They appear in our historical documents as spiritual directors and cynical politicians. I told you, ulama have always been in politics. I'm not the only one who observed that. So they participate in politics. They can even do the cynical one that I think is above them. He said, some of the ulama are sons of wealthy and influential families. Others are impoverished immigrants from remote villages. Some are landowners. Some ulama are salaried professors or bureaucrats. They have always been in politics. They have governed for a long time. And some ulama are merchants, wealthy merchants, like some that we know are from Kano. Because, if you know Kano, you know there will be merchants, and there will be Muslims in Kano. So some merchant ulama from Kano. The great majority of the ulama have been men, but there are a number of notable women in the rear ranks as well. In short, The ulama seem to cut across every possible classification of groups within Islamic society, playing multiplicity of political, social, and cultural roles. But despite this amorphous understanding of the ulama, they are plainly a crucial element in any Islamic society. In fact, they are the one group that make any society Islamic rather than being another type of society. And he said, wherever you turn, you find the ulama. If you are an Islamic historian, every aspect of Islamic history you look, you notice the ulama are there. This is a richer understanding of ulama, a descriptive rather than a definition, a description of the body of ulama. And true to what he said, wherever you turn, you find the ulama, even in Nigeria, as these authors have documented in unlikely places. The first one, of course, is your own very own, on the role of ulama in transmission of culture in Lokoja, which is, I think, perhaps partly inspired by Mahdi Adamu's Hausa factor. It's a colonial town, but you find Muslims there at the founding of the colonial experience. Zakaria Hussein has documented the presence of ulama in southeastern part of Nigeria, with focus on Edo State, where a big town called Auchi is believed to have been originated from the jihad of Sheikh Usman and Fodio. And most recently, my colleague in the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, Igodi Uchendu, has documented the history of arrival of Islam in Igbo land. And who carries Islam to Igbo land? Ulama. Because without the ulama, there can be no Islam. So, yes, ulama are pervasive, they are multifaceted, their role in Islamic society is multidimensional, and they defy any simplistic understanding. Okay? And everywhere you go. So, the trouble a lot, you're finding everywhere, apart from knowledge, is mobility. Part of the defining characteristic of the ulama. And we know many of the ulama have traveled a lot. Some in compliance with the prophetic commandment, search for knowledge. Even in China, which in the time when this prophet made this statement, China is probably the farthest place you could go. So travel, travel to learn is one major aspect of the understanding of the ulama. And prominent ulama we know have traveled. Like Imam Al-Ghazali actually received his turning point in his intellectual development when he was robbed on his road to when he was traveling. And he was begging the robbers, please give me my books. That's my knowledge there. They say, your knowledge is in the books, only useless knowledge. And that was a starter for Al-Ghazali to start thinking, what is knowledge? Is it what is contained in the book, or what is experientially imbibed and normatively adhered to? What is knowledge? His understanding was inspired by travel. Ibrahim Al-Kanemi is the first name we know from the ancient kingdom of Canaan, but we did not know him from Canaan. He appeared in Morocco as a poet, Arabic poet, and his name is Al-Kanemi, Ibrahim Al-Kanemi. That's all we know him. We know that he was from Canaan, but we did not know him from Canaan itself. And he is among the earliest known ulama from the region. He was around 12th century AD. Ibn Battuta traveled all over the place. And Muhammad al-Kashnawi, from the name, we know he's from Kasina, but he's resident in Cairo in the 1400s, around the Azhar University. And many of them travel is being part of the experience of being member of the ulama. As the Hausa saying has it, tafiya mabudin ilimi. But tafiya alone will not make you an alim. You can get some knowledge by tafiya, but tafiya alone will not give you proper ilimi. So, how do you become a member of the ulama? By becoming educated in the traditions of Islamic learning, globally or locally. In Nigeria, we used to have like 3 traditions of Islamic learning. Makarantar Allo / Makarantar Tsangaya, if you merge them together or you can separate them. Makarantar Allo in the urban centers for basic Quranic ability to read and pray, or Tsangaya for advanced studies of Quranic sciences. So you can split them or join them together. Then we have Makarantar Zaure, where we learn Arabic literature and Islamic sciences. Those traditions are probably still existing, but in addition to those earliest ones historically, in the colonial time, Islamia began, and by the end of the colonial period and early independence, we have another tradition that attempted to combine Islamic learning with modern Western education. The premier institution of which was here in Nasarawa, the law school, Northern Provinces Law School, now School for Arabic Studies. I know many of you among here who are graduates of that great institution, including your humble speaker. Now, additional traditions of Islamic learning, apart from those ones, the tradition of IRK in public educational system offers many people their first exposure to Islamic learning. Then, because of the crisis of Tsangaya and Quranic education, which has really collapsed, more or less, an alternate has emerged, the Tahfiz schools. It's another tradition of Islamic learning that has produced distinguished scholars of Quran that have won prizes at international competitions, including among the recent ones, a young lady from Gombe State, who was one of the winners in this year's competition. So that's another tradition of Islamic learning that has emerged. It's new and it's richer than the old one because it now has separated, because of its historical and socio-economic factors, has separated the learning from the institutions of learning. The Tsangaya has collapsed because it was dependent on a different historical and social, economic as well framework. It has been replaced successfully by the Tahfiz schools. Only those who cannot afford it send their children to Tsangaya and Makarantar Allo. Otherwise, the school of choice to go is Tahfiz schools. Nabai's tradition. This Nabai's tradition, Nabai stands for National Board for Arabic and Islamic Studies Examination Board. It used to be a small agency in the Institute of Education at Ahmadu Bello University. It coordinated the examinations for schools of Arabic studies, about 2 of them in Kano and 1 in Sokoto, and about 5 or so. My certificate from SAS was certified by Nabais. But Nabais now has transformed, and it has been long in that transformation. And credit goes to committed Nigerians who are Muslims who know this tradition and argued and campaigned for it, especially the former Minister of Education, 2 former Ministers of Education, one from Jigawa, Professor Rikaya, and the other one from Kano, former Governor Shekari or Shekau. They helped to bring federal recognition to this tradition of Islamic learning. And nowadays you can gain admission to any university in Nigeria with certificate from Nabais. Our generation could not. You have to go to either Islamic studies or Arabic at 3 universities at that time. BUK, University of Maiduguri, and ABU is never always ready to admit us. They didn't have Islamic studies until now. It is a teaching subject in education, but they don't have Department of Islamic Studies. Eventually, they opened Arabic department, but they still insisted you have to have 5 credits. So I never really welcome in ABU, except at the College of Faculty of Law, where you can do Sharia diploma and then you can gain something. But that is gone now. And Nabais, in fact, recently upgraded their offerings to include not only traditional Islamic studies, but also chemistry, biology, mathematics, and you learn usul al-fiqh and biology in the same classroom, which actually looks like very novel, but it isn't. Traditional Islamic scholars, including mathematicians, astronomers, physicians, if you know them, Al-Khwarizmi, Musa Al-Jabir, you know this one by their English contributions to mathematics. Al-Khwarizmi is algorithm. That's why you get the concept of algorithm. Musa Al-Jabiri is why you get algebra. Scientific study has been part of the curriculum of ulama education. That's why I say if you restrict them to religious knowledge, maybe you don't understand who the ulama are. So this new tradition, like the Hafiz, is a hot take. Parents are running for it because it is what they have been waiting for. To attend conventional Western school from 8, 7 in the morning until 1, 2, and then come back, rest, and get ready for Islamia was not productive. It defies educational psychology. By that time, there is no room to learn, and the kid is tired and they don't get the Islamic knowledge they have, and parents are never happy with that. But now the solution has come. They can easily go for the nearest Islamia where they do Nabai's certification. In addition to these traditions of Islamic learning, there is an old one that it has mutated. It's Islam on radio, Arabic on radio from Cairo. There are many people who learn Arabic on radio. I even went to Egypt to study. So, ulama participate in politics. They have always participated in politics. And I identify ulama participation in two modes. One mode of participation is intellectual. What do you expect? Surprise. Ulama intellectuals. So one mode of ulama participation in politics is what? Is intellectual. Articulating constitutional law, basically. What should be the nature of state power? What are the fundamental offices of state? What are their functions? What are their duties? Wazir, Sahib al-Baitul Mal, Amir al-Jaysh. What should be their functions? This is done in the branch of Islamic law called As-Siyasa Sharia and also Al-Hakam al-Sultaniya. That's where Islamic constitutional law is discussed by ulama. It's one of their vital participation in politics. Next to that, part of that articulation comes in the Nasihatul Muluk, which is like a more secular discourse on politics. And when I examine Al-Magili's text for Emir Muhammad Rumpa, I realized it was more Nasihatul Muluk than it is in the tradition of Siyasa Sharia. The Sufi tradition, very unlikely platform for development of political thought, because Sufism is predicated on zuhud, avoidance of the world. Yet the Sheikh-Murid relationship provided a template of leadership that has influenced ulama participation, theoretical understanding of politics. The second important mode of ulama participation in politics is practical. That is, they participate in fundamental offices of state, wazir, imam, judges, and so on and so forth. One of the most significant participation of ulama in politics is the development in West Africa, when Sufi scholars waged a revolution to capture state power and use it, not to serve as advisors or appointees. The ulama themselves captured state power and they proceeded to govern for a very long time. I'm very sorry I get carried away. I did not focus enough. Colonialism, we are familiar with much of this material about the ulama and their encounter with colonialism. The big difference I have argued is that we should not think of colonialism as a unilateral imposition, but as an encounter. Unilateral imposition has a predictable outcome, but an encounter does not. And that's why at the end of colonial rule in northern Nigeria, our tradition, our history, our religion, our culture emerged intact. Colonialism did not erode those vital aspects of our identity. Since then, of course, things have changed. Ulama during Ramani Siyasa, Ulama in contemporary politics. Some of the important traditions I want to open for conversation and the changes I have observed, apart from the changes in traditions of becoming an ulama. But ulama participation in politics has taken a new dimension that wasn't there. I call that bureaucratization. I can't pronounce the word. Bureaucratization of ulama. That is constituting ulama as members of a bureaucratic agency of the state. In the Ottoman Empire, there is a system like that, dianic. But in Nigeria, we didn't have that. But now it's upon us, largely because of Sharia implementation. The ulama as chairman of state corporations and agencies. The next important thing is the emergence of female ulama. I wrote a book like that, an essay like that, and one of my colleagues who studies Sufi women in Kano, and the title of her work is "Where Are Many Sufi Women in Kano." She corrected my usage of female ulama. She said, unless it has to do with biology, you should not use that term, male, female. Woman is the social category, but female is biological category. If you now begin to talk about biology, then that is another problem. But emergence of women ulama, accomplished ones, and stubborn ones, they are not ready to be silenced. They are not going to be silent and don't turn the table. And they are among us in this gathering. These are major development. I think they are welcome development. The other development is the flamboyant celebrity ulama on TV and Instagram and Tesla, all of that, who like, okay, celebrity ulama. How do you differentiate them from Kannywood? Sometimes it's a challenge. The way they dress, every day they wear brand new design of clothing. That is never the tradition of the ulama. So I will say, you can learn more about this category through BBC, Usama Lamanku. So it's time for me to sit down and learn. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, the keynote speaker, Professor Muhammad Umar from the University of Abuja. A round of applause for this. I will, at this juncture, like to recognize the presence in our midst of Sheikh Ibrahim Khalid, the Chairman Council of Ulama. You are welcome, sir. I would also like to recognize the presence of Sheikh Karibullah Nasir Bukhara, leader of Nigeria Set in Africa, every represented by Honorable Ali Kushai, former Deputy Speaker, Kano House of Assembly. We also have the President, Transparent Credit Development Association, Nigeria Leader Regional Office, Kano, Nigeria, Alhaji Mutaka Akisa. You are welcome, sir. Next, agenda is the remarks by the special guest of honor, His Excellency Engineer Abdul Yusuf, the Executive Governor of Kano State, ably represented by Professor Chitani Muhammad Nania. You are welcome, sir.
Your Excellency, the former governor of the Gao State, a political icon, and a former minister of Foreign Affairs, Alhaji Sule Lamido. Your Excellency, former ambassador, the Sardaunan Katsina, Your Excellency, the Vice Chancellor of Bayero University, Kano. Excellency, yes, educated people are also excellencies. Represented by the Chief Librarian, Bayero University, Kano, the Vice Chancellor, Northwest University, Sokoto, here with us, other distinguished representatives of various organizations, Mr. Chairman, sir, other members of the academia, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be with you in order to articulate and reaffirm the need to continue with this discourse, to explain and show the need and reinstate the desire to discuss ulama and politics in Nigeria. Because this is a topical issue, and I think that only Kano deserves the right to organize it first. I say Kano because the foundation of Kano is a kingdom, and later as an emirate was based on the contributions of the alliance between the scholar class and the rulers. Kano did not attain fame until it got the assistance of the ulama in the person of Abdurrahman al-Zayti with his entourage. With him, Kano was able to make conquests that later was translated into jihad, which expanded its culture areas, and thus made Kano not only a kingdom, but an Islamic-focused kingdom. This translated into Kano becoming a caliphate, as Murillas asserted, with a contribution given by Al-Magili during the period of Muhammad Rumfa. If these were the contributions of the ulama before Kano became part and parcel of Sokoto Caliphate, then you could imagine what the rulers, what the ulama contributed when Kano became an emirate, a province in the Sokoto Caliphate. Because this time, the ulama were not only advising, they became the leaders of the jihad and the administrators, starting with Suleiman, Sarki Suleiman, then taken over by Sarki Ibrahim Dab. In fact, it was these ulama that provided Kano the yardstick to prove her own worthiness and to protect the integrity of Hausaland generally. So if this is what the ulama played in the pre-colonial era, what of in the colonial era? That's why the governor is to posit that even during the colonial period, it was the ulama that spearheaded the activities that led to the transformation of politics during the colonial period, at least with the decolonization process that started in 1946. Because most of the leading scholars in Kano, children of leading scholars in Kano, were those that provided the leadership for the radical pattern which politics took in Kano. Aminu Kano was a son of an alim, was a son of a traditional scholar. Saad Zunguri in Bauchi was a son of a traditional scholar. So it was this knowledge of the radicalized Muslims that put the basis of modern politics in Kano that led to the emergence of NECA. And even afterwards, in the neo-colonial era, I don't call it post-colonial, it's neo-colonial era. Because there was nothing like post-colonial, because we were never and we are not independent. To this day, we are being teleguided. The moment the West or America denies, Honorable Minister, you are here, sir. You can prove me wrong, sir. But I know, and Ambassador is also here. The moment Nigeria refuses to align, refuses to follow, that will be the beginning of another problem. There may be another coup, or there will be a regime change. So where is the independence? Where is the autonomy? Only neo-colonial structures running us. That's why we don't have institutions. And if you don't have institutions, you can never have democracy. That's why, as His Excellency puts it, he cherishes the view of the former governor of Sokoto, of Jigawa State. When at one of the interviews, the former governor was replying one of the scholars that visited him. He said, if there was anything to go by, then you scholars are those that have failed us. Because scholars that have played the role in the pre-colonial period, in the colonial period, in the beginning of the neo-colonial period, made us to discover ourselves. But the scholars of today, there is a doubt. If they were doing their job, there would never have been corruption in Nigeria. If they are doing their job, there would never have been like carpet crossing in the Nigerian politics. If they are doing what they were doing, then things would have been different with the kind of democracy we are practicing. That's why His Excellency posits that in order to make this democracy of ours more vibrant, then it is better for this fora such as this to come together and charting a new course for the cooperation between scholars, politicians, and traditional scholars generally. Because unless we understand each other, when we agree to disagree and disagrey to agree, we will never chart a course that is acceptable to the... I am the governor. So you cannot stop. You cannot stop. So I'm wearing. So unless we succeed in this, in achieving this, definitely our leaders, our political leaders, will not achieve what they want to achieve, because they will be leading people who are focusing on something else while they're focusing on another. Because unless there is understanding of what Islam is, as far as Kano is concerned, the leadership, that the political leadership knows the tenets of Islam, knows the kind of history and focus of the achievers of our Muslim leaders, and what is the focus of our present Muslim youth. We cannot provide the kind of leadership that is desired. And the only way to get that kind of leadership is for the ulama. I have seen so many of them here to come together and articulate a common cause that will be the better of all, for the better of all. To be different in perspective is a welcoming idea. You can have different perspective of understanding Islam. But to make that, to divide Muslims, is something that is currently bedeviling our society. Unless we make a change, we will not go anywhere. On behalf of His Excellency, this is his speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our teacher and mentor, who is now representing the Executive Governor of Kano State, a round of applause to Professor. Next, we are going to have 2-3 minutes for will be requested by our guest of honors, starting with the Chief Imam of Kano, heavily represented by Professor Muhammad Awad Sani as our
Once again, I'm back. Ulama was a Ulama, so they are part and parcel of the political race in this country. Therefore, they cannot be left behind. This is number one. Yes.
And Development Studies for inviting me as a guest of honor. I certainly felt really humbled by this honor. Thank you so much for the honor. Secondly, I would want to follow suit what previous speakers have stated regarding the timeliness of the conference and the aptness of the theme. I also actually commend the faculty for the choice of the time and the choice of the theme as well. Finally, I have just a 3-point speech to make, a very short one for that matter. Of course, I am presenting a goodwill message, but being a teacher in the university, I would be expected perhaps to make intellectual reflections on the theme of the conference. And in this regard, I would want us to situate the discourse of the role of ulama in politics within the context of some 2 Quranic verses, and then within the context of one of the sayings of Sheikh Usman Danfodio in one of his books, which I'm going to mention. In the first instance, there are 2 Quranic verses, one in Surah An-Nisa and the other one in Surah Al-Ma'idah. The verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah, in Surah An-Nisa, projects the role of the ulama as the conscience of the society and also as the absolute reference point for the society, and especially in matters of leadership, governance, and statecraft. And that is the verse in Surah An-Nisa where Allah says, وَإِذَا جَاءَهُمْ أَمْرٌ مِّنَ الْأَمْنِ أَوِ الْخَوْفِ أَذَاءُوا بِهِ وَلَوْ رَدُّوهُ إِلَى الرَّسُولِ وَإِلَى أُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْهُمْ لَعَلِمَهُ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَنبِطُونَهُ مِنْهُمْ وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ لَاتَّبَعْتُمُ الشَّيْطَانَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Now, ulul amri minhum here, according to the explanation of a number of Quranic exegetes, is referring to the ulama, just as the same reference is made to the ulama in the same surah where Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u rasula wa ulul amri minkum. So you can see from the perspective of this verse, the ulama certainly have a significant role to play, not just a significant role to play, but they are the conscience of the society as far as politics, leadership, and governance is concerned. That is number one. Number two, the verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah projects the role of the scholars, of the ulama, as the redeemers of the society. When the society is drifting politically and socially, when the society is degenerating politically and socially, it is the ulama that are expected to redeem the society, and that essentially confers the role on the ulama to participate in politics and to redeem the society. Because Allah says, while He was castigating the Jews in partaking in sin and bribery and corruption, وَتَرَى كَثِيرًا مِّنْهُمْ يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ وَأَكْلِهِمُ السُّحْتَ لَبِئْسَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. You will see many of them rushing towards wrongdoing and sin and transgression and taking bribe and partaking in corruption. Evil is that what they used to do. But immediately after saying that, And that is a sign of degeneration. Immediately after saying that, Allah charges the scholars, saying, لَوْلَا يَنْهَاهُمُ الرَّبَّانِيُّونَ وَالْأَحْبَارُ عَنْ قَوْلِهِمُ الْإِثْمَ وَأَكْلِهِمُ السِّحْرَ. So, لَبِئْسَ مَا كَانُوا. Why were they not prevented? Why were they not prevented from transgressing and partaking in sin and also partaking in corruption? Why were they not prevented from doing that by the scholars? Evil is that what their handiworks do. Now, these two verses, I think, should be a guiding light for us, and we need to steward our discourse on the role of ulama in politics within the perspectives of these verses. Finally, Sheikh Usman Danfodio stated in his book, Diya'us Siyasat, and it is striking because I certainly wanted to make this explanation. It is Abdullah Danfodio that is known to be naming his books Diya'ul Hukam, Diya'ul Ulama, Diya'ul Sultan. But strikingly, Sheikh Usman Danfodio has a book which he called Diya'us Siyasat. And in that book, which I personally read and I have, he says, I'lam, know, you reader, Anna Siyasata Naw'an, that politics is of two kinds. Siyasa Adila wa Siyasa Zalima. He says politics is of two kinds. There is justful politics and there is wrongful or unjust politics. And he describes the two. And he says, Siyasa Adila, for Siyasa Adila, it is the Siyasa that is anchored on al-amru bil ma'aruf wa nahyu anil munkar, enjoining goodness and preventing evil. And he says it is the siyasa that fights corruption in the society. And he says it is the siyasa that is also anchored on raddul mazalim, that is to say, fighting az-zalumay and taking back the hukuk of those that have been oppressed back to them. And he says participating in this politics, wajibun, fardun. He says to participate in this kind of politics is wajib. And he describes siyasa zalima. He says it is the siyasa that promotes corruption in the society, that transgresses limits, promotes sinfulness, and promotes al-amru bil munkar wa nahyu anil ma'aruf. It is a siyasa that is geared towards promoting sin in the society and preventing goodness in the society. And he says it is haram to partake in this politics. This also presents another framework for us in discussing the role of ulama in politics. Finally, I would want to state very quickly that the restoration of history in the Nigerian education curriculum came in a very robust and much broader way. Because as we all know, history as it was then offered only used to be offered when you come to class 3 from 3 in the secondary school. That is when history used to be offered. Otherwise, in the junior classes and in the primary schools, it used to be social studies. But this time around, with the new curriculum that we have just released, history has been restored in such a way that history would be taught right from primary 1 through up to JSS 3. And as we all know, when students move up to senior secondary school, now they are divided and categorized into their various choices or specializations. Those that go to arts and humanities, and those that go to the sciences, those that go to the commercials, and those that go to the technical courses. And as it were, history as it used to be offered then, it is only used to be offered by those that are in the arts and humanities. This has been provided. And then in addition to that, another thing has been introduced, and that is to ensure that whether you are a science student or an arts student or a commercial student or a technical student, you must have some element of knowledge of history. And that is why we introduce citizenship and heritage studies. Citizenship and heritage studies. This has been made to be a core subject such that a science student must offer it, a technical student must offer it, and a commercial student must offer it. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
As we're close to next, I would like to invite Sheikh Brian Khalid, Chairman Council of Ulama, to give us.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ina ganin hadisin Bukhari wanda annabi ya ce annabawa su suke shugabantar jama'a, daga baya malamai kuma suka wakilce su, ya isa. Salamu alaikum.
Next, we have a representative of Sheikh Abdul-Wahab Abdallah. Yeah, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. An ba ma Malam Abdulwahab minti 3. Muna nan kuma zaune ya kira ni ya ce yana ma taro fata alkhairi, kuma babban darasin da yake so wannan taro ya fita da shi kare ya zama an takaita taron kawai a irin abin da muka sani na research na jami'a, communique da zai fita daga baya a yada ma mutane a gari tunda dan su ake yi, to ya zama cewa an fita da wani sako mai matukar muhimmanci. Wannan sakon kuma shi ne yana da kyau a wayar da mutane dangane ga alakar malanta da shugabanci a musulunci. Ba abubuwa bane guda biyu masu zaman kansu. Duk sanda aka ce yanzu malami ya kusanci siyasa, ya zama abin zargi ga al'ummar da yake rayuwa a cikinta. In malami ya fito siyasa, abin zargi ne. Shi yasa da malami bayan kalli ya fito takarar gwamna, duk musulman jihar Kano mutum 8,000 suka zabe shi. Sun yarda da shi a fatawa da limanci, amma ba sai da rike kudin su ba. Wannan yana da kyau gyara mutane tunani su gane cewa malamai ba macuta bane, malamai amintattu ne a cikin kowace irin mu'amala ce. Abu na biyu, yana da kyau a sanya tarbiyyar mutuntawa ga shugabanni a kowace irin sakta ta rayuwar. Yanda aka ga waɗannan tsari na colonial, turawa sun ɓata masarautu, ba su da kima wa daraja a cikin mutane yanzu. Hakanan suka lalata tsarin malanta. Ba komai ya kawo wannan ba, sai dai suna so su jagorantar da mutane a irin mulki wanda ba na addinin musulunci ba. Shi yasa aka sanya mu musulman karan kansu tunanin cewa ku sanya mu malamai tsoro da cin mutunci da gaya musu miyagun kalamai waɗanda idan malami ya fito in yana da mutunci dole ya koma gefe. Ana tsammanin siyasa ta zama ta wasu ashararren mutane ba su da daraja, ba su da kima a cikin al'umma, wanda kuma wannan isi problem da ya kamata mu kokarin gyarawa, dan ba shi ne hakikanin siyasa. Siyasa kamar da malamin Khalid ya faɗa yanzu, khairul kalam al-qalam wa dalla, annabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam shine jagora, khalifofinsa sun yi jagoranci. A nan Najeriya duk wanda ya kalli masarautunmu ya gane tsari ne na malanta ake tafiya da shi. Sarkinku limaminku, sarkinku alƙalinku, sarkinku mai jagorantarku. Shehu Usmanu kuma bai tura kowa sai malamai, amma da tura suka zo suka yi disintegrate din wannan tsarin, ya zama a bamu wasu jagorancin limanci, wasu jagorancin alƙalanci, wasu kuma su ci gaba da riƙe mulki yayin da 'ya'yan sarakuna suka daina yin karatu. Yana da kyau a dawo da mutane akan wannan tasihul mafahim din, shi zai sa al'umma su gane in an ga malamai kusa da siyasa to ba wai kwaɗayi bane, ba kuma sakin aikin suka yi ba, a siyasar ma aikin su ce, wasu ne suka karɓa musu. Ba za mu kuma taɓa yadda wanda su karɓi kayanmu su zo su ci gaba da koran mu akan abin da shi ne asalin abin da Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala zai tambaye mu akan sa.
محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. من يشوى مبني لسكي أو نموجي جاور من التعوى. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. magana takaitacciya kuma mai faɗi mai ma'ana da yawa wacce shugaban majalisar malamai na jihar Kano Sheikh Ibrahim Khalil ya faɗa ita ce ake gini a kanta kuma ita ce tabbatacciya. Amma a keynote da professor ya gabatar ya fitar da wani topic cewa who are the ulama, wa'annan malaman da ake so a ce su zama jagorori, su zama shugabanni, su shiga cikin harkar mulki suwaye. A fim ɗin da aka faɗa an nuna case study ne na Nigerian politics, ma'ana siyasar Najeriya ta yanzu. Siyasar Najeriya ta yanzu in ka ce ulama kake nufi su shugabancinta su suwaye kake nufi da ulama ɗin. Tunda mulkin yana da tsari, yana da abin da aka ɗora shi a kai wanda yake tafiya a kansa. Idan ka ɗauko wanda bai san wannan ba ka ce ya jagoranci wannan, to definition ɗin da ka ba ulama ya ɗora a kansa ko bai ɗora a kan shi ba. Da gangan ne mutum ko ya gane ko ya gani bala Allah, tunda a department na history muke, kowa ya san lokacin da turawan mulkin mallaka suka shigo ƙasar nan ba sun shigo bane kawai su mulki, sun shigo da manufa. A cikin manufofin sun shigo da abrogation na addinin musulunci ga baki ɗaya da shari'ar musulunci. Dole ne in za a yi haka sai an raba malamai da mulki, domin in dai malamai suna mulki za su gaba da tabbatar da abin da suke sani, suka yarda da shi kuma suke imani da shi. Amma daga lokacin da aka raba malamai da mulki suka zama 'yan kallo, to sannan ne za a iya yin abin da aka ga dama. Sauran mutanen gari babban abin da yake a gabansu bayan addinin su rayuwarsu. To tunda rayuwa daban addini daban, dan kai a ce mai dan siyasa kuma dole ya haƙura. In dai ba haka ba, to za su ci gaba da zama 'yan kallo ne. Har sai nan da suka fahimci menene constitution, ya aka tsara shi, ya za a gudanar da shi. To sannan in suka rikide suna rike da dama kuma suna rike da hagu, to sannan ne za a iya ba su dama su shigo cikin harkar siyasa har ma su zama jagorori. Amma in dai malaman da muka sani malamai na soro wanda suka san alkur'ani suka san hadisi, kafa ɗaya ba za a basu su taka a cikin harkar siyasan nan ba, saboda ana kiransu a nan dai ba sunansu ulama ba, amma a gida sunansu ulama. Amma in an fito fagen siyasa za a dama ta, da zarar malami ya hau duro to za a canja mai suna daga nan. Saboda haka ya zama ba wancan ulama ɗin ba kenan. Dole akwai buƙatar wayar da kai na musamman mutane da su kansu malaman. Lalle ya zamana in an ganka da alkyabba da rawani da sanda ɗazu, to yau a ganka ka karya hula, ka saba babbar riga, kana sa baki a cikin dukkan abin da ya shafi rayuwa ta ɗan adam. Kada ya zama da malamai sai ya za a yi sallah, ya za a yi azumi kawai aka san su magana, sai an ji malamai suna tsoma baki a cikin abin da ya shafi harkar rayuwa, harkar tattalin arziki, harkar cin amana, harkar rashawa. Malamai suna toba bakinsu akan irin waɗannan, to daga sannan ne abubuwa kuma dole su tiyarin ya canja. Akwai tsautsayi da haɗari a cikin irin wannan kwarai da gaske, duba ga irin tarihin da ya faru a baya, musamman tun da an ce case study ne na Najeriya. In an duba me ya kawo juyin juya hali na daular Usmaniya a ƙasar mu nan, musamman arewacin Najeriya, ganin cewa Shehu Usmanu ya fara magana akan ga yanda ya kamata a yi adalci, ga yanda ya kamata a hudda da dukiyar jama'a, ga yanda ya kamata a yi kaza, ga yanda ya kamata a yi kaza, wanda daga wannan lokaci aka ga cewa ga dukkan alamu sha'awar siyasa yake yi, ya kamata a sa mai takunkumi, ya kamata a mai kaza, ya kamata a yi kaza, wanda da ƙarshe abin ya juye ya zama juyin juye hala, Allah ya bashi nasara, ya tura waccan gwamnatin ya kafa daula ta musulunci. Daular musulunci Allah tabaraka wata'ala ya sata a hannun annabawa, bayan annabawa sun kare aka sata a hannun malamai, bayan ta yi wata ‘yar doguwar tafiya kuma sai ta koma gado, ba la'akari da ilimi, ba la'akari da tsoron Allah, ba la'akari da cancanta, kawai waye ya haife ka, wanda duk ya haife ka haihuwarka ita baka cancanta ka shugabanci jama'a, ba iliminka ba ko takawarka ko nutsuwarka. Daga nan wani bangare kuma ya koma ƙarfi da ƙwace, in ka ƙarfi ka ƙwata ka zama mai mulki. Babu shakka wannan topic, wannan sim da aka yi wannan lokaci namu yana da mutuƙar buƙatuwa a kansa. Akwai buƙatar da su kansu malaman a wayar da kansu, akwai buƙatar da su kansu 'yan siyasa a wayar da kansu, akwai buƙatar da su kansu talakawa a wayar da kansu. Addinin nan shine abin da yake tabbatacce, abin da duk ba shi ba kawalweniya ne. Yanzu nan akwai shi, yanzu nan babu shi, amma addini duk inda aka je aka dawo za a same shi. Da zarar ya subuce babu abin da zai ma canjin sa. Saboda haka ina godiya ga wannan department da ya wannan tunani na cewa a tattauna akan wace irin rawa malamai za su taka dangane da abin da ya shafi siyasar Najeriya. Najeriya, musamman mu arewacin Najeriya, magana ce ta addini kawai. Dole ne kai magana addini a kowane sakta kake, a kowane bangare kake, sai kai magana addini domin mutanen addini suka sa a gaba. Amma in wawai da ada an zo musu da tinkiya da wato fatar ko kuma kura da fatar tinkiya, dole suna bi haka dan ba su san me suke bi ba. Shugabanci an dai dana an gani ba mafita, dole aka sa ake tunanin me zai hana a gayyaci malamai su matso kusa don su faɗi yadda Allah yake nufi kuma yadda Allah yake so. Allah shi ya halittar nan kuma shi ya faɗi yadda za a yi ta tsaro ta ci gaba. Kuma duk wani wato tunani, duk wani tsari da za a yi ba yadda Allah ya ce ba, to ba inda za a. Komai tsawon tafiyar sai an je an ga ba hanya ba ce an dawo baya. Dole a zo a tsaya a tambayi ya Allah ya ce. Amma wannan wato yardstick da aka tsara aka ratsa tsakanin malamai da shugabanci, sai an yi tunanin ya za a karye wannan gadar malamai su hauro don su zama, ko ba su zama shugabanni ba. A da sarakuna sai a ce ga sarki ko ba malami bane sai ya kawo waziri kusa da shi shine malami, abinda duk za a yi abokinsa ne ya raɗa mai ga yanda Allah ya ce, ga yanda Allah ya ce. To yanzu kuwa malami dan kallo ne, kuma an nuna masa dan yatsa kai ya sake ce uffan, da ya ce uffan sai a gaya wa duniya ga yanan zai shiga siyasa. Shikenan sai malam ya ja baya ya haƙura, sai a ce za a zage ka, za a ci mutuncinka, za ka ɓace, za ka yi kaza, za ka yi kaza. Shi kuma malam yana ganin ya za a ci mutuncinsa, shikenan sai a ba malam haƙuri, sai ya dawo ya shiru ya ci gaba da koya arwala da sallah. Allah ya samu dace. Wannan conference Allah ya sa a yi shi lafiya, a zama lafiya.
Thank you very much. Another round of applause to next, inshallah, I would like to invite Sheikh Ulama Nasir Kabar, ably represented by Honorable Ali Mushayika.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه التابعين تابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ. Manya-manyan shugabanni da suke wannan waje, malamai, assalamu alaikum. Ulama Halifa Qariballah, shugaban ƙadirar Afirka, ya iso wannan waje sai Allah ya sa tafiya ta kama shi a jiya da yamma. cikin zo muku fatan alheri. Allah sa a yi taro lafiya. Kuma ina jaddada shawara musamman ga malaman da ake magana a Najeriya, musamman arewacin Najeriya, kamar yadda barista ya faɗa, lallai a ci gaba da wayewa kai ga musamman shugabanni da suke za su shugabanci na mutane. Babu abin da ke damun ma arewacin Najeriya da Najeriya gaba da irin cin amana. Shugabannin a kokari a ga musu illar cin amana, a riƙe amana. Mutane sun je sun ba su amana, yayin da aka zaɓe su mutumin da ya je don mai ƙuri'a, to wallahi amana ya bayar. Kuma ita amanan nan abin tabbaya ce. Malamai suke cewa tun daga nan duniya mutumin da ya ci amana zai fara gani kafin ya je lahira. Bana mantawa zamanin gwamnatin ta gabata 2003, Malam Ibrahim Khalil shaida ne. Bayan an gama zaɓe aka tara 'yan majalisa gaba ɗaya na jihar Kano. Aka ga musu ga abin da Allah ya ce a yi, ga abin da Allah ya ce a yi, ga abin da Allah ya ce a yi. Idan kuka yi saɓanin haka, to mun fita mun sauke nauyin ku da Allah. Amma na tabbata ban taɓa jin labarin wata gwamnati ta irin wannan ba, musamman 'yan majalisa da na jiha da na tarayya. Ɗan majalisar tarayya da na jiha an mai da su wato kaman tuwon tashi. Duk abin da aka kawo musu ba magana amana, ba a magana cewa mutane me ya kamata da musu. Sai kawai sai sun amince ko ya yi kyau ko bai kyau ba. To tun daga nan ake samun matsala a Najeriya. Malamai ku fito ku aiki, a fito a aiki, domin kuka bai wannan aiki wallahi ku soke nauyi. Jama'a za su shaida, Allah zai shaida. Malam Ibrahim Khalil gashi Allah ya fito da shi a hakan nan, amma ko a yi ko ka a yi ba zai fasa fitowa ba. Kuma har a zo za a sha Allah za a zo gwada ban za a zaɓe shi. Ai magana barisa da ke cewa malam ko limami aje kandiri, aje rawani, aje alkyabba, ya sa kare hula. A'a ya je da wannan kayan kan mambari na siyasa. Ya je da shi a ga cewa bayan Allah sun zo suna magana wannan harkar ta siyasa, domin ba kowa bane yake wannan abu, sai mutane suka cancanta. Ba ha koyi mutumin da bai san amana ba, bai san kansa ba, bai san addinin ba ma. Idan ka ba shi fata wallahi ba zai iya karanta ba. Idan ka zo ba shi sallah ba su iya sallah ba. Idan aka zo da sahiyo sama abin da zai yi ba. Kawai ya zo da bukatarsa, ya ɗauki kuɗi ya bar an zaɓe shi. Ya za a yi amana a kan. Ya kamata malamai ku ci gaba da wannan bayani, ko a ce ku 'yan siyasa ne ko ba 'yan siyasa ba ne, kar ku damu. Ku sauke nauyin da Allah ya ɗora muku. Assalamu alaikum.
As a round of applause to Honorable Ali Kokai for presenting to Ulama. Thank you very much. Next is I would like to invite Ambassador Ahmad Bai Sardol Kasna.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Da farko dai ina godiya ga wannan jami'a, ga waɗanda suka shirya wannan taro, wannan conference, suka gayyato ni. Na riga na gode ma Allah, na gode ma waɗannan mutane, kuma ina so in gode ma jami'ar Bayero. Saboda kamar yadda Professor Muhammad Sani ya faɗi, ba dan ta ba mu dama ba, ire-ire na tun da ni haya musulmi a Katsina, da ban shigo jami'a ba. To, da yake an ba mu dama, aka ɗauki ni na shigo, ko da na shigo ma saboda damar da jami'a Bayero ta bada, sai na rikide na yi French special grant. To, daga nan na gama, aka rike ni na yi aikin NYSC a nan, na koma na zama administrative officer a Katsina, na wuce na je na zama foreign service officer, na zama intelligence officer, na je na yi aiki a United Nations, United Nations ma kala-kala. Na dawo na zama mataimaki kan harkokin diplomasiya da alakar ƙasashe na shugaban ƙasar Najeriya, sannan na zama Director General National Intelligence Agency na Najeriya. Na shekara 7 ina yi, kuma aka ce an yi nayi da kyau. To, ina godiya ga wannan jami'a, kuma na gode ma Allah wannan dama da aka ba mu. Sannan magana ta biyu, again, kan maganar da shi Professor Muhammad Sani ya yi kan cewar idan ka duba zama misali biyu, misali da farko kusa da mu lokacin da aka yi ta rikice a nan West Africa, aka yi ku a Mali, aka yi ku a Burkina Faso, aka yi ku a Niger, ECOWAS suka haɗu suka tattauna suka kawo matsayi. To malamai malaman Najeriya sun yi ƙoƙari sun shigo cikin wannan al'amari a suka nemi su yi financing ko su shape foreign service, foreign policy in Nigeria. Wani lokacin kuwa ya san wani. Malamai sun kai da kawo su taka rawa a wannan lokaci. Kuma ana ganin ya cancanta su yi don wani su kansu suna ganin ya cancanta su yi wannan ne. Na biyu, yanzu haka ana cikin United Nations General Assembly. Kuma an yi abin da ake kira high level week a ga wani kasashe sun yi da shugaban kasa ɗaya na duniya babba shi ne Trump. To cikin jawabin da ya wanda saurara abin ke saurara. Akwai addinin musulunci ya fice shi ya mace addinin Kirista kuma wasu da Yahudanci. To wannan na ƙarshe yanzu zama da ake cikin Najeriya ana ƙoƙarin wani samun da hukumi a Kirista ko a Kirista nan. Ma'anar wannan ita ce wani Najeriya tana masa ma wani addini cikin addinai da shi. Zuwa wata na yin hankali ya kamata ta samu da hukumi. To ana yin kawo jiya labarin jiya shi ne akwai congressmen guda 5 wanda suka yarda suke masawa sai secretary of state sanya wa wannan Najeriya kuma sai a Najeriya abin cewa a nan shi ne addini yana cikin siyasar duniya kuma yana shirin yana ɗaya da cikin abin shi ina muka nufa manya-manyan layuka na policy na international relations a cikin akwai abinci. In ko akwai abinci a cikin malamai Ulama suna da rawar da su taka wajen hukunci ma da aka fa ko su ba ku shawara su ba gwamnati shawara ko sun zo ko su ga wannan da wani abu da to da wannan ne ƙara godiya Allah sa wannan taro ga lafiya. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Next, I would like to invite the Chairman of the Organizing Committee, we have one of the guest of honors, the former ex-governor of Ulama State, Excellency Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Da yake wannan da wannan ana kan wannan malamai siyasa. Dole magana ta Hausa domin suke yi. Farko, ina so ne a fara wannan taro saboda na zama kai. Mutum nan ana magana da ya yi shigo a kafin ƙarshe na nan ko kuma zama kai. Na biyu shi ne wani zama ne mai sauran yawan suke mai saura yana da wasu ƙarfi da su. Amma ga wani da shi ne da sun ainihin lokaci da Rosananiya, ka zo nan rukar da jawabin gwamnati yau, ka bayyana wanda ya sha wani wuri. Ko da ka ina godiya da mutum da suka yi ce da wani wuri, kuma haka Allah bayanai da su ba su nan wuri. Sun nuna cewa babu shakka a tsakan tsafta na da mutum da ya yi. Hujja shi ne wata daga yara ya shiga hudu ba su. Wata ne tare da tare da ya kuma kano an fara shi da tasiri. Siyasar ne malamai a tsoro da malamai ya ɗauki da wajen tunani wani cewa Allah ya ce, annabi ya ce, ga daidai da daidai sun zama yau. A wancan lokacin suna mulki na sarakuna a suna sarakunan musulunci. Wannan malamai suke so ya mata. Sarakunan musulunci ana magana adalci, ana magana tausayi, ana magana da yaya a kan tarbiyyar musulunci. Amma yadda ya sauta lokaci shi ne akwai alamar cewa akwai saɓani da ke mutunci. Ba na son akwai da kashi mai kaushi cewa saboda kashi ne sarakuna ba sa kuli ne da suka ba sa suna mutu kama da ya mutu zalunci mutu ainihin cewa sai kawai kamar. A wajen lokacin talakawa malamai da kashi suna kuna ne kuma suna kuna yanka kuma da kone ma shugaban kone ma don kone ma mashi ne ku bi abin da ya faɗa kan kusa ya faɗa kan ne ba ne ma kwaniya ba ne ma suna ba ne ma ainihin gani amma ne shi ne a kusa ya kuma shi ne ke ne to kuma ne shi ne cewa ɗan kuma ya kuta da kai noman ya ba ɗan da wajen na magana shi ne kafa ne dama shi da shi domin alaƙa musulunci da shugabanci. Wasan da layi an yi ta kai an bai gani a cikin zamanin da yake a siyasa an kawo ne da yi a wajen ba. Ni na kuwa da jiyoci. Mun yi da tune shi. An kare ma kan bagar da kai da ne. An kawo da mushi. A wannan zaure akwai yarabawa, akwai yahudawa, akwai turawa, ko gaba aka yi da shi wata aka bin da ne. So daga dawo Najeriya ɗan BBC na Mexico da yake ji aka bin da ne. So kaga wanda zai na arewa ba da ne. Na ba ka hansa kuskura da wani ba. Ina jin doka da kuskura mai kyau. Ike kuna, ike so bayan. Abin da wani Najeriya shi ne abin da aka wata zaure da ke koyi larabawa ya yi ko wani da zai shi ne wani Najeriya. Kada da faɗa ba. Allah ku sanar da masu ya tafi ne a duk tsari na ana zine mu har da kafa da mai rabuwa kawai da zai yi a bayan da daga shi ne da wannan zuwa bayan na abu abin ya zo ta yin siyasa a kan son zuciyar yau a kan ra'ayina cewa ba zai yi wa ba ana ce mu ba da mai ba ba da zuci cikin sani ake nuna transform da rai. Ake yi zaɓe sun nan da bayan ake yi wata kwanan almato a kwanci. Ake yi gidan lafi a yara. Saboda haka wannan dole ne wajibi ne masu mutane su kawo tsari da albasu a siyasa ta addini a kan jagoranci cewa mai ake da shugabanci.
abin da wani fara yi kuma malamin abin na kirawa shi ne duk shi da ne me shugabanci me haƙƙin shugabanci me haƙƙin mabi abin shugabanci shi ne kawai amma yanzu an wani da cewa idan ka ra'ayi jami'o'i guda hamsin kudin hamsin a ce malamai su san wasu kasa abc pdp abda me zan ko da ka ai siyasa amma kan bayi ilimi a kan cewa a san me gindi ya fi wani shi ne siyasa saboda haka na fata cewa wani zuwa ne masu ba da filo ku yi karfin zuciya da kan mutane kawai da suka cewa me aikin malamai ne me aikin malami a siyasa kawai siyasa an kashi da ya yi ba wani pdp farko da ya fi su za shi ne shugabanci da cewa mai shiga takara a nan guda mai hali guda ba ta kai wani ba ainihin neman shugabanci ga mutane ce da saboda ka na zo da kwarai zuwa na mutane da kai muna fata cewa abin da zai da duk na son samun kwafe kai da mutum da ma ba kai assalamu alaikum
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause. Now, there is an important announcement. This after this session, inshallah, the plenary session is going to start by 2:30. 2:30 to 6:30. We have 5 paper presenters. One Anwar. The title of his paper is Milestones in the Politics of Influence and Identity, the Ulama in Northern Nigeria. We have Professor Mutar Umar Buza. The title of his paper, Ulama in Nigeria, Definition, the Conceptualization and Representation of their role and status in historical perspective. And we have Professor Jan Muhammad Lania. The title of his paper is From Traditionalism to Modern Political Activism, the Sharia Discourse in Nigeria, 1959 to 2014. And we have Professor Asman Said. The title of our paper is Sheikh Said bin Hayat and Abu Bakr Mahmoud Gumi, From Religious Petrol to Father-in-Law, 1947 to 1986. And finally, we have Professor Muhammad Kari, title of paper, the Ulama, Society and Conflict Management in Northern Nigeria, 2009 to 2019. Next, inshallah, I will invite the Chairman of the London Committee, Professor M.D. Suleiman, to give us a word of thanks. Professor.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Give us tremendous support in this conference. And the next group of guys are those who financially supported addition of schools. We'd like to send our gratitude to Professor Mahmoud, the young chairman of the university, assisting in organizing this conference. The next is Alain Isaac, the chairman of the group. Also, generously supported the children. Now, students among council and we work out the also all assisted financially in the organization of this council. Mostly, also thank our guest speaker and as well as the who accepted our invitation who is part of also very as a matter of fact, this conference was inspired by the one conference hosted by the Sixth when the state keynote address speaker for this organization delivered policy related and inspiring the politics now, local community because it's a topic that really requires very wider discussion, not just people talk about this conference. One thing about this conference listening to response
Thank you very much to the chairman of the organizing committee, number of this, an announcement that the newspaper presentation, the plenary session, will commence by 2:30 at this venue. So one of the papers that I want to be presented here. Then tomorrow, the other people presenters will have their presentations at the podium of the college and the mathematical bodies by 9.